Basilica, Christ is risen. Christos anesti. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs, bestowing life. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, Christianity, being a follower of Jesus Christ, is not a definition. Rather, it's an expression. It's an expression of who we are as human beings. And that statement is what we can take away from the gospel lesson on this first Sunday that follows Great and Holy Pascha. Today is called Thomas Sunday because it's on this Sunday every single year, 1 week after Pascha, where we hear the gospel about the Apostle Thomas. It's the story that gave him the nickname, the Doubting Thomas. This Sunday is also called the New Sunday, or the anti-Pascha, not meaning that it's against Pascha, but meaning that it's in place of Pascha, because it's on this Sunday for the church, moving forward from this day, that every single Sunday in the church calendar year is now considered to be a rededication and a re-celebration of Christ's holy and glorious third day resurrection. In the gospel, we heard that it was Thomas who doubted that Jesus had actually appeared to the other disciples after the resurrection. It was Thomas who said, "Unless I see for myself, I see Jesus for myself, and unless I witness in his hands the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe that he is risen, and I will not believe that you saw him." But the gospel goes on to say that 8 days later, after appearing to the disciples without Thomas, Jesus once again miraculously appeared to them when they were all gathered together, and this time Thomas was with them. And so this time, Thomas got the proof that he needed. And when Thomas saw Jesus and witnessed the wounds in his hands and in his side for himself, the gospel says that Thomas not only recognized him, but he correctly identified him as my Lord and my God. And then the gospel ends with Jesus telling Thomas, "Thomas, it's because you have seen me that you have believed. Blessed are all those who have not seen me and yet still believe." So it's on this Sunday every year where we're reminded of why exactly it is we come to church in the first place. Because just like Christ, who appeared physically to the disciples on that first Sunday following his death on the cross and his 3-day burial and his miraculous resurrection, Jesus also appears to all of us mystically each and every Sunday right here in church. And every time we come to celebrate the divine liturgy, where we receive his very body and his very blood in the Holy Eucharist. As Christians, we believe that Jesus Christ is truly present with us when we gather at church every Sunday. We may not see him with our physical eyes, like the disciples did on that day that we heard about in the gospel lesson, but we do see him and hear him and feel him and experience him and his presence spiritually when we listen to the words of the liturgy. And when we hear his voice in the Holy Gospel lesson, and when we receive Holy Communion together, and when we lift up our own voices together in prayer, thanking him and extending our gratitude to him. And in return, we're all blessed by him. Because just as Jesus offered great hope and great faith and great joy to the disciples when they saw him after the resurrection, he continues to offer that same joy and that same hope and that same faith to each and every single one of us when we come to church every Sunday. Because it's here where we meet Christ, and it's here where we are spiritually filled by him every week. And it's here where our countenance or where our character is lifted up every week, and where our soul is renewed every week. And it's here where our very foundation as people is strengthened every week. And it's here where we are reminded who we truly are every week. We are people who desire to be with God, and we are people who God desires to be with. But this Sunday also reminds us that our faith must be lived in order to be realized. As we said, our faith is not a definition, it's an expression. And our relationship with Jesus must be personal, just like it was for the Apostle Thomas. And it must be real, just like it was for Thomas. And it must be expressed, just like it was for Thomas. Not only through our own knowledge about him, but most importantly, through our actions towards him, just like it was for St. Thomas. And so, dear brothers and sisters in Christ, as we remember today the disciple who doubted Christ's resurrection, Thomas, whose doubt was transformed on that day into a glorious belief when he met Jesus face to face after the resurrection, let us use this day and every Sunday moving forward in the coming year to remind ourselves of the great blessing and transformation that we also experience every time we meet Jesus ourselves right here at church, in our participation of the blessed divine liturgy, the place where Jesus Christ regularly reveals himself to us, just as he did to the disciples on that first Sunday after the resurrection 2,000 years ago. Because ultimately, it's all of us who are all those people who Jesus spoke about in the gospel lesson this morning when he said to Thomas, "Blessed are all of those who have not seen me physically and yet still believe spiritually." Messiah come. Christ is risen. Christos anesti. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life.